This edition of MacVoices is brought to you by Take Control Books, the answers you need now from leading experts. Learn more and download yours at takecontrolbooks.com. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the Talk of the Mac community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, if you were watching our CES coverage from January of this year, you got to see a little device that I was kind of excited about called the Padcaster. I bought one. I love it. I have used it in a number of ways. And now there is a new Kickstarter project for the Padcaster Mini. And so here to talk about that, along with everything else Padcaster, is the father of the Padcaster, Mr. Josh Apter. Josh, it's great to see you again. Thanks for showing up.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Oh, it's great to see it. And I was so glad to see the Padcaster Mini Kickstarter finally get off the ground, simply because I really want a Padcaster for my Mini. So, come on, let's get this going.
I know. Well, originally this was supposed to launch at NAB in last spring, and I guess had I done some more research, I would have realized that Amazon has to approve you for a payment process, and then Kickstarter. There were all these review processes that I had to go through, and I thought I would just kind of type it out, hit the switch, and it would be live. And by the time I was approved, NAB was basically over, and we did great. Actually, at NAB, we had an amazing show, and then what happened was, because of that review process, it got delayed. We had a huge event in June that we do every year, so we focused our sights on that and our energy on that, and then we moved our offices. So we're finally in a new office. You can tell it's a pile of junk behind me. I haven't quite cleaned up the place yet, but as soon as we got settled, I said, this thing has to go up, because I've been wanting to do this for almost. And now we're about 10 days away from it being done.
Well, it's exciting. It's very exciting, and I wanted to talk to you, I guess, about the evolution of the Padcaster, but a number of people have come up to me, looked at mine, and said, "Wow, what is that? Where'd you get it? How's it work?" And it fascinates me, Josh, that there really aren't solutions out there. There's one for the iPad Mini, but there aren't, in fact, as far as I know, none for a full-size iPad to mount an iPad on a tripod. And it seems like such a natural thing, because you've got a camera. Now, we can talk about camera quality and all, but even if you're just using this for a second angle or even a third angle, why wouldn't you take advantage of this?
Right. Well, the other thing is, a lot of people are using it for live streaming, and considering that you need nothing more than a data plan. Certainly Wi-Fi helps, but it's not actually necessary. People are, using their LTE connections to live stream. We did it at Macworld, an uninterrupted LTE live stream for a half an hour with nothing but an iPad. I mean, I think the trade-offs of looking a little silly with that, thing on a tripod or a monopod or what have you, when you talk about the kind of convenience it affords, and I think we were talking before, the people who get it, they get it, they see it. And I think other people who, kind of say, well, that looks kind of silly. Yeah, of course it looks silly, but it frees up your hands and it allows you to do things with it that if you do want to use it for a camera, for, let's say, for journalists who want to catch a story, for people who want to sketch out a project. People in schools are now using it in film departments, so that, let's say you want to go out and storyboard something, you can do that with this as a camera and just get somewhere and visualize something in a way that you couldn't before, very, very easily and quickly. So, yeah, I'm surprised too, although you can see people's love affair with their phones, because it's in your pocket. I think that's something to be said about that. The iPad and the Padcaster will never fit in your pocket. I like the fact I'm not going to go blind trying to see what I'm doing.
You said it looks silly, and I'm not, maybe I've just gotten used to it, but I really don't think so. I think it's the same reason that people, now, you want to look silly, you hold an iPad up and take a picture with it. But the benefit there is you've got this huge viewfinder right in front of your nose, and people seem to like that. And that is so much more important in video that this just seems so obvious that I can't imagine. And in a world where we do now, we have multiple iDevices and therefore multiple cameras, it's great to mount those at different angles. I've done several of those where I'm taking the same shot of an individual talking, but I'm getting it from different angles, cut it up in Final Cut, and it looks very dynamic, and it was just me and some iDevices.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, the iPad camera is not, it's no slouch. It's a great camera for what it is. It's not, look, a sensor that size doesn't mean you're going to have that shallow depth of field look. But I was just, when we moved, we packed up all of our stuff, and then my VX1000 came out of a box somewhere, and I was shooting with that thing in the 90s, thinking that was the greatest camera in the world, and what was that? I mean, I don't even want to figure. The resolution on that thing was so bad. It was like shooting through a Coke bottle. I mean, it was awful, but that's what we had at the time. And I think if you consider, what this thing can give you in terms of resolution, picture quality, and sound quality, it definitely stands up there. I mean, I'm watching stuff that looks worse on local news channels every day. So, I think people will get over it when like Fox TV has been using them with their local news affiliates. I think they look at it as just a much simpler way to get the same or better quality than they're used to.
Well, the whole publishing industry and even the television industry is adapting to these new tools. Of course, a few months ago, we had the thing about the Chicago Sun-Times took out all their photographers and gave everybody iPhones. And I'm not sure that that's the best idea in the world, but it certainly is a sign of the times. Sure.
I mean, the quality, again, and you look at the quality of the 5S. There's a short film circulating now. It's a shot in slow motion at 120 frames per second. And just a simple fix that they did in iOS 7 where you can lock exposure and focus on the camera inside. You don't have to go to some special app like Filmic Pro or something to get it either. It's astounding. I mean, and that's a little fix. Imagine when Apple decides they want to put all of those guys out of business, what they're going to do.
Well, and of course the idea too, and we sort of jumped right into this, but the Padcaster is basically a frame that the iPad fits into that can be mounted on a tripod, but then you've also equipped it with the appropriate holes around all sides so you can mount things like microphones and lights and all kind of accessories. And that is where it really comes into its own, because you can have a full-blown camera there with a lot of sophisticated equipment in a very nice, compact, easily transportable package.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the thing. All the pieces fit in a bag or a little Pelican case, and it really, depending on how you want to scale it, you can take it just to have a simple Rode mic mounted on top, and like an Apogee Jam audio interface. It's just a single mic input that goes right into the charging port. And if you don't need light, you're good. That's, I don't think Rode is on that level making the greatest microphone in the world, but if you want to take a step from there, Apogee makes another unit called the Apogee 1 that has phantom power built into it and an XLR breakout cable, and you can take your MKH60 or your 416 and use a powered microphone, and then you've really got something. And the sound quality is pristine because it's going through something other than the headphone jack. And it's really, now that Filmic has an audio monitoring function in their camera app, now you can hear what you're recording while you're recording it, which 3 months ago you couldn't even do that. So, we're still at the front end of all this, I think, too. It's just really very much in the early stages. And in another year, it's going to be, I won't even believe that we were here a year ago.
Yeah, and I use my Beach Tech box, which I've had for a long time, to get an XLR input so they can go into the iPad, and there you go. And it mounts right on the Padcaster. So I've got a lot of equipment hanging off of it, but it still works. That's what you need.
That has a quarter 20 screw right in the bottom, right? You can screw that thing right into the frame.
Exactly.
This guy I knew, he's an audio guy at Able Cine now, and he has a Fostex, I think it's the 302. It's that little mixer recorder combination. It's like little, it's like that big. And he was taking that screws onto the bottom with a clip that'll screw onto the bottom of the Padcaster and give you tripod mounts underneath the mixer. And it can go in via USB into the iPad also. So you can get one of those camera connection kits or one of those USB ports for the charging port and take your audio in that way and do a backup recording to an SD card simultaneously. So that way, if it doesn't give you the audio you're looking for, at least you actually can sync it up later. So it's a lot of people getting very inventive. I wish I had thought of all these things. And I really, I saw it as, something I was doing interviews with exhibitors at NAB, not in 2013, but in 2011 and 12. First with the iPad 2, just jerry rigged up somehow into something in clamps and stuff, but then with the prototype in 2012, and it was for that purpose, great. You just give you a minute and a half to tell your story, throw titles at the front and the back that were already living in your photo library, and it was uploaded, almost in real time. So, it's great for that stuff. I shudder to think someone's going to want to shoot some feature-length thing or a complicated piece on it. Someone will, just to prove they can. But, it's to me, its strengths are in its speed for doing the short pieces. I think that's really where it really excels.
Well, and of course now we have so much amazing software for video editing, even on the iPad. At one point, it was okay. You're sort of limited to iMovie, and that went away real quick at NAB this year. I know we saw at the Super Meet some amazing editing software for the iPad. That yeah, there's a little bit of a learning curve because it's a new interface, but it also you're editing with this again, and that's kind of new for a lot of us.
Right.
So
yeah, I got a piece that I just sent you a link to a short piece that we for Kickstarter said, look, let's go out and shoot something and cut it. Let's do it. Let's give ourselves 24 hours to make film, and I was able to cut it almost entirely. I had to take it out first, just like one or two things. I took it outboard, but I basically cut it right there in Pinnacle Studio, and it was it's phenomenal how easy it is. I think it still could use some, in terms of functionality, I didn't know it could even undo. So I felt like I was committing to it. And again, it was making me think like film because it was much more of a commitment to the edit, and to think through things more because I thought it was final. And then I realized there actually is, it's just an arrow pointing backwards. That's all. That's there, so it is a learning curve, but it's such a, again, for a first generation editor on an iPad, it's surprisingly full featured, and what is it, $12 or something like?
Yeah, that's the stuff that drives you crazy. Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about the Padcaster Mini. Obviously, it's another way to put an iPad Mini on a tripod and do some of this stuff. But what particular appeal is there for the iPad Mini at this point?
Well, to me, it's always been about the fact that, because I bought a Mini, a little skeptical of it, saying maybe this will be a good reader, or I just didn't know exactly if it was going to be this failure of a product in between the iPad and the phone. And I love it. I love the size because it's still got a great size screen, so you can really see what you're doing. I still think it's better than a phone, which is really too small for, I think, a lot of what people are trying to do. But even with a Padcaster around a Mini, you can still chuck it in your bag and run. And it's a much less cumbersome version of the full-size one. And I think that was really where I felt like, you might hit sort of the moms and dads who are out there shooting and, looking for that, just a little something to give them a little, even handheld is more stable than just holding it. But, a little monopod or something like that, or even a handle. I put like an old Bolex pistol grip on mine, and it's kind of like having this weird new Super 8 camera that's oriented in the opposite way. And because there's a great app that's just a Super 8 it's a incredibly convincing version of shooting Super 8. And, that's, to me, I'd much rather run around with that and then not only shoot it, but then I don't have to wait for the lab to process it for a week and a half. I can take the thing, cut it, and send it to my family.
This edition of MacVoices is brought to you by Take Control Books. The great ebooks just keep coming from Take Control, helping you get the most out of programs, procedures, workflows, and more. Two of the most recent titles are Take Control of PDF Pen 6 and Take Control of Dropbox. In Take Control of PDF Pen 6, Michael E. Cohen shows you how to use what I consider to be an essential program to do things like add comments or proofreading marks to a PDF, fill out and sign a PDF-based form or create your own, OCR the text of any PDF sent to you, and much more. Covering the newest PDF Pen 6 features, such as exporting to Microsoft Word, an enhanced toolbar, and others, Take Control of PDF Pen 6 is a simple, effective way to get the most out of the premier PDF utility. The always informative Joe Kissel shows you just how powerful everyone's favorite cloud service is in Take Control of Dropbox. Sure, Dropbox syncs files, we all know that, but that's just the start. Joe discusses how to recover an accidentally deleted file, working with your photos and videos in your Dropbox, using your iOS devices with Dropbox, and much more. If you think you know Dropbox, just wait until you see what Joe has to teach you. And these are just two of the constantly growing collection of outstanding ebooks on topics you want to know about. delivering information you can really use. Take Control Books, the answers you need now from leading experts. Learn more at TakeControlBooks.com, and thanks to Take Control Books for sponsoring MacVoices. And again, to take it just a step farther, the Padcaster with the Mini, a full-size iPad, maybe even a small digital camera that'll capture. You can do 3 different angles, throw those into Final Cut, and it's going to take you about 15 minutes to learn how to do a multi-clip. And then you've got this amazing piece of video that can cut back and forth easily. It boggles the mind just how powerful this is and how far we've come from just a year ago.
I know, it really is only going one direction. People are going to be doing a lot more of this as amateurs and hobbyists and as professionals. I really think, seeing what I saw from the 5S, it's going to put some cameras out of business. Really, it was phenomenally good looking stuff.
How about the next version of the Padcaster? That's something else that is mentioned in the Kickstarter project. What is going to be the next version of the Padcaster?
Let me see if I can show you. I have one here. So I don't know how much you can see it, but you'll notice that there was rubber or urethane over this area in the version 1, and this area here was a lot more closed, and people were having trouble getting their fingers in there and getting access to the charging port to plug in an Apogee or something into the charging port. Was actually, you had this little channel that would work it through, and what I used to do was I'd thread the cable in and then connect it and then put the iPad in after the cable was connected. Now you have a lot of space to really manipulate something. Certainly like a lightning connector would be no problem slipping through there and then plugging it in while it's already installed. And that was really, I just wanted to make it that much easier to have access to the controls. The other fix is that these holes on the side, they were made as large as they can possibly be made without causing structural damage to the frame. So my goal was to do a half inch, and that would have allowed my Sony 7506s to go through. And I just got an email from the engineer saying, tough, because it's at that thickness, the frame will collapse on the inside. So it'll be darn close, but I think it's going to be like 0.41, something like that. So it's quite a bit bigger than it was on both of these non-threaded holes. And then the other thing, if I can pop this out, and this, I only have the new insert. I don't have the new frame yet. But what we've done is we've taken these 2 holes here, and we're mounting these rubber pads that will sit here so that if you do use this for a regular video camera, let's say you want to screw a DSLR or some other camera in here, it won't be sitting on a thin strip of metal. It'll actually be sitting on, how like this tripod right here, this base plate has some rubber to catch it. It'll have 2 rubber pads to hold your camera down with a little bit more friction. And that was actually a reviewer who noticed that as a frame, it's okay, but it's really not, he didn't love it as a frame. This is a, kind of an accidental DSLR cage, but if it's going to be one for somebody, it might as well be one that can hold the camera a little bit more securely on the bottom. So, and those are the major fixes for it. I was thinking about integrating cold shoe adapters right into the frame and having slots in a couple of these spaces rather than having just threaded holes. But, I feel like I've seen cages like that, and I'm always afraid someone's going to get cut because it makes it a sharper frame. And then the second it falls, it's going to collapse on itself, and then you're going to have to bend the thing out, and it's going to break. And I feel like a couple bucks you can get those cold shoe adapters that screw in, and when you're done, you take them out, and it doesn't compromise the integrity of the frame, which I kind of like, just round and smooth like that. So, but yeah, those are the big fixes. Not much, but I think ergonomically, people are going to find it an easier experience to work with it.
Sure, little improvements that's always the way to go.
Yeah, baby steps.
So, what are the levels of sponsorship for the Padcaster Kickstarter? Because we started talking about
Sure.
What I mean by that is, we talked about the Padcaster Mini. Now we're talking about Padcaster 2. Are they both part of the project, or what?
They are. It's money is for R&D for the improvements to the full size, and to make another. Basically, we're going to do a second order, and then to really design and prototype the Mini. So the drawings are done for the Mini now, and the 3Ds are, that's sort of, they're very easy to get. But in terms of a prototype, that's something we have to go to somebody who can actually make that model for us. And those are really the challenges, because we have a manufacturer for the original Padcaster, so we already have a sense of what it costs to do all the tooling for the Mini, to change the tooling for the V2 on the full size. So we know what we're up against, and that was one of the big things on Kickstarter, was ask for just what you need, and that's really what we're doing. Is we're not, we don't want to ask for enough to do this and take a vacation to the Bahamas, even though I would love to do that. This is really just, this is to get us to a place where we can actually manufacture enough to actually give to the people who are backing it. That was really the idea.
Well, I sure hope that, I would, in fact, I'd change it. I would encourage everyone, go out and back this project. If you have an iPad Mini, and if you're at all interested in doing any kind of video with those devices as primary devices or supplemental devices, because it's great. It's when I saw yours at the show, but when I got mine, I just was so impressed by the quality and just what you're talking about there. You're measuring things down to fractions of fractions to make sure that you don't compromise the integrity of the product, but you also give as much flexibility as you can.
Sure. Well, it has to double as a blunt instrument in case, someone tries to break into your car. So you want to be able to make sure that it does some damage.
I hadn't thought about that one.
Don't try that at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been very interesting to try to sort of refine it and make it something that's elegant from a design standpoint, but also it's got a very straightforward use too.
The price of the original Padcaster, that'll help give people an idea of what the retail on this is.
The original Padcaster, it retails for $149.
Yeah, and it's still for sale.
It's still for sale. I resell them, through resellers like B&H, Adorama, TechServe. I believe the email that derailed our first chat was video guys asking for more. And then, through Amazon, actually, they do a pretty robust business over Amazon right now. And I think if you have a certain account, you can probably get it cheaper because the shipping is free. Right. So, that's how we've been selling it now. And then we could do orders, purchase orders for schools and for businesses like Fox TV and stuff like that. It's all internal. But yeah, it's been an interesting situation, just sort of watching it kind of gather momentum through the education system. I mean, that was really something very interesting to see. Is that I went to the ISTE conference in Texas. ITSE or ISTE? I'm not even sure what it is. But it's an educational conference down there, and the same sort of thing happened. Someone saw our camera guy or our iPad guy, and they just said, "What the hell's that?" And now I'm getting schools in the South asking if they can implement them into their programs. So it's just cool to see it happen. And I think whether this Kickstarter is a successful one at first or eventually, because we may refine the campaign. I think what happens is if it doesn't happen for the first time, you can repost or relaunch the project almost immediately. I backed someone who ended up not making it for their first try, and within days she had adjusted the goal and adjusted some of the rewards, and I think she met her goal within 2 days of relaunching the project. So, it may be that the world's not ready to spend that kind of money on a mini Padcaster, but I think it's certainly worth reevaluating it. And also, I hear a lot of action happens in the last week, and we're not quite at the last week yet. So we've got a couple tricks up our sleeve. We're about to shoot another video to see if we can't get some people's attention. But it's been very interesting once you're in it to see the amount of work it involves. Sort of what the outreach is like. We have a lot of people who are just like you. I mean, it's so generous of you to ask me to speak about this. And we've had people who all they do is crowdfunding promotion, and they're just throwing us out there to all these people. It's just it's really cool to see it once you're in it. I've been waiting for this for a long time, so I'm regardless of how it actually goes for this round, I'm amazed at how different it was than I thought it would be in a good way.
Yeah, we've talked to a number of people that have done Kickstarters. Most of them successful, but not always. And they speak to the quality of the program. That to take your own words, you don't just type something up, do a little video, and throw it out there. I mean, they're very particular about what they will let on there. So the fact that you even got to Kickstarter is a huge accomplishment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think they addressed us very personally. They were tracking the project. They looked through our rewards, and they had some revisions and some suggestions. And you could tell there was another guy at the end of the line who was keeping an eye on this thing. And so we've heard back some feedback from them even during the campaign. So, we know they're out there. We're just trying to figure out how we can become a staff pick. And that's the big, that seems to be, this kind of crowning achievement. So we're trying to figure out if that's possible, or if, there was another kind of similar product about 6 months ago. Maybe it was too soon after that for another thing like it to appear. It's, there's so many different factors at play that, I don't know. I think if we tried to consider all of them, we'd still be figuring out when to launch,
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'll make sure I have links in the show notes to the Padcaster Kickstarter. So folks, go to the MacVoices site, get there directly. But if you are interested in learning more about the Padcaster itself, the one that's currently available, where do we send them, Josh?
Well, the Kickstarter tells the whole story, and you can actually get it cheaper through Kickstarter than you can anywhere else right now, because it's a promotion to raise the money. So, I would say they could go to the same place if they want to. Our website, thepadcaster.com, does have information and reviews and accessories, which a lot of people are asking about. What do I throw on this thing? And so we redid the site for the campaign, and the result is that it's a much more it's just an easier to navigate website that shows a lot of our videos, a lot of our reviews, the accessories, and links to Amazon to get them. But I think the best deal in town is to go on Kickstarter, because you can get the version 2 for I think $120, something like that. So we're sort of incentivizing people to buy it if they can wait a month to receive it, to buy it on Kickstarter at a discount.
Great. Well, again, I want to encourage everybody to go and back this project. And I don't do that with every project we talk to, but this one is kind of exciting, and it's one I definitely will use, whether it's Kickstarted or not. I want one, so put me down, Josh.
If I have to make it out of wood for you, I will make one for you.
Perfect. Don't think it'll be quite as sexy, but I'll take it.
All right, I'll try.
Hey, thanks so much for the time. It's great to see you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much. It's great being here.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices, the talk of the Mac community. And yes, I do use a Padcaster on location, so please check it out. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, app.net, Google+, Facebook, and for more Apple, Mac, and tech-related shows, including MacVoices, Mac Notables, the Mac Jury, and the MacVoices Briefing. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com.